Hello, and it's time once again for another episode of the Small Bear Show. I'm your host, Alex S. Johnson, aka the Small Bear, and there is an origin story to that moniker that has to do with people like I don't know, Francis Ford Coppola and Michael Ritchie, who made the Bad News Bears, and George Lucas. But I'm not going to be talking about that. You know, The reason I'm not going to be spending much time talking about myself, other than a brief introduction, is because my special guests are two of the people who have certainly influenced culture, counterculture, and modern culture, had enormous influence on how we interact with technology, for example, or how we think about things like, meditation or cosmic consciousness. And I'm talking about people who had direct contact with collaborations with key members of the Beat generation, including Allen Ginsberg and William S. Burroughs, and their successors, and the people that whom they, the original Beats influenced, and some of the musicians that I've worked with. And so I'm going to just briefly tell all our five viewers about what I do. And so I'm an author and a journalist and a cultural curator. And what I like to do is bring together people who are connected by so many different kind of intersections that, so I think of them as sort of nodes, right? So you got, for example, David J. Haskins, the founder of, co-founder of Bauhaus and Love and Rockets, who wrote the song Bela Lugosi's Dead. I mean, among other things, he was also a playwright, composer, fine artist, whatever, right? But he's, you know, like we all have the thing that's going to be on our headstone, right? David J. Haskins wrote Bela Lugosi's Dead, right? Which in its now Bauhaus was so incredibly influential on music, but also on culture. But they were inspired directly by William S. Burroughs. And so that's just one example of whom I publish. I published original work by John Shirley, who wrote the 1994 cult classic film The Crow, with David J. Scow, who co-founded Splatterpunk. I published original work by Billy Martin, aka Poppy Z. Bright, who wrote the foreword to our Bauhaus tribute, as well as the the introduction to the Junk Merchants, a literary tribute to William S. Burroughs. And we have a whole host of cool people that, several of whom are, very, very close friends of mine. And I guess, the person I'm closest with, aside from my partner, Elias Les Williams, aka Pickles, is Ellen Mabey, and as sort of I brought out this book, which is, I guess, a good conversation starter. For one thing, the Outlaw Bible of American Poetry, which was edited by Alan Kaufman, and I think S.A. Griffin was a contributing editor. So it was really a collaboration. And this features astonishingly, I mean, it blows my mind that I'm actually like friends with, several of these people, in this book, um, and including Ellen, but also Iris Berry. I've read it alongside Iris Berry, right? And I'm also, I was friends with the late great Dominique Lowell, aka the Janis Joplin of spoken word. I'm friends with Nelson Gary, who was in my Bauhaus book, and then also I've collaborated with Catfish McDarris I'm in a chat book with literal Charles Bukowski, thanks to Catfish. And so, and this book is really a who's who of counterculture, right? It's got so I'm looking. I always locate first. I locate like Ellen Mabey is here,
Hmm.
right? And then one step up, John Giorno of Giorno Poetry Systems. Um, let's see, Ira Cohen is to the right. Then okay, Ellen Mabey, Franci, right? Who was married to Bukowski, and Waldman. And then you have directly beneath and slightly to the right of Ellen Mabey, Marc Olmsted, who is with us today, right? Then below that, Nelson Gary, who was part of the Dear Bela group. Then you have, let's see, little known names like, I don't know, Hunter S. Thompson, Tupac Shakur, Amari Baraka, Lawrence Durrell, William Carlos Williams, Gregory Corso, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and Ellen is the sort of, as always, seems to, remember the movie The Big Lebowski? When the when the nihilists, pee on Jeff Bridges' rug, and he says, you know, you know, his friend, was it Steve Buscemi, who says it really brought the room together or something, or Jeff Bridges says, right, it really brought the room together. Well, Ellen maybe really bring, I hate to, I don't know why I'm comparing her to, the Big Lebowski carpet, but she really brings the room together. She's always there, and her cover photo on Facebook, right? She's standing there, and for a shy person, I don't know, something happens, right? Where she's just like majestic. And so my two guests today, I had all this prepared, but I'm just gonna put you two in conversation and just be a fly in the wall, right? So Mark Olmsted, I've got this, I did a little bit of Okay, so Mark Olmsted is a poet and memoirist who was mentored by Allen Ginsberg for 25 years. Allen Ginsberg, of course, was the author of, among other many, many works, but Howl and Other Poems is best known for Howl and Other Poems. Um, and Ginsberg praised him as inheriting Burroughs' scientific nerve and Kerouac's moving-minded line, and practicing Buddhist since 1974, completed a 3-year retreat under Lama Tharchin Rinpoche, teaches mindfulness infused poetry workshops, and writes on Dharma, desire, and poetic form. Publications include Milky Desire from. Did you write Milky Desire?
Yeah,
Okay, that was Subterranean Press, which also publishes my friends Poppy Z. Bright, Billy Martin, Poppy Z. Bright, and Caitlin R. Kiernan, which is pretty cool, right?
there, uh, Subterranean Press, that was a mistake. We didn't realize there was these other guys existed and were actually far better known, so we never used it
Oh,
again.
oh, I see. So it's not subterranean. So
It's not the
it's
Subterranean
not the
Press.
subterranean press.
We
Okay.
thought we were so clever.
Resume Inevitable Press, is that you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What Use Am I a Hungry Ghost? I know that's you. Valley Contemporary Press, 2001. Now, was was Richard Modiano or Emily Frank involved with any of these things?
Yeah, well, Richard wrote a poem about the death of Allen Ginsberg that was at the beginning of What Use Am I, a Hungry Ghost?
Yeah, that's
Uh, the Valley Contemporary Poets allowed me to use their label because of the ISBN.
oh, I see.
And I read for them back in the day. And again, it was mostly my doing. Amelie, of course, was always a very, very kind person and did introduce me to a lot of cool LA people like Scott Wamberg
Yeah.
and S.A. Griffin. Um, Richard, I've known since I was 13,
Wow.
which I carry on and on and on about.
Oh
So I
my
try
God. That's
try not to. extol his virtues too much.
Well, he is
But
really a great guy.
he is truly.
Yeah,
He's done wonderful work, and he's not done yet.
he's not
Yes.
done yet.
No.
Fresh Lotus Rehab, Virgo Grape Press. Oh, speaking of, that sort of reminds me. Do you know Jan Steckel?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so Jan is I it's sort of like I've known Jan forever, right? And she was mentored by Julia Vinograd.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes.
I'm
Which is
just
kind of wild,
right.
that whole scene and the Zeitgeist Press, of course, which was pretty successful, I think.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of really good people on there, a lot of good women poets.
When I was just really small, like we lived in Berkeley on Telegraph Avenue, and so we were actually like I don't know if it was Telegraph Avenue directly, but we were across the street from People's Park, and my dad was really good and still remains friends with this woman who's Terry Garthwaite, who founded Joy of Cooking. Right. And she actually opened up for Janis Joplin and Allen Ginsberg and the bands. And so like I keep trying to get her on the show. She's really incredible. She's still going strong. Anyway, just to finish up, don't hesitate. Memoir, don't hesitate. Knowing Allen Ginsberg, beat Dom books, not beat Dom. That sounds sadomasochistic. Um,
Some people might agree with you on Beat Dumb, but that isn't their name.
Right. Published in City Lights Journal, New Directions in Prose and Poetry, number 37, Outlaw Bible of American Poetry. I just saw you. Sensitive Skin, Beat Them, Empty Mirror, Journal of Beat Studies, Journal of Global Buddhism, Buddha Dharma, Other Zine, Sunflower Collective. And so that is Mark, that is just a little bit of Mark Olmsted. And I've published alongside Mark Olmsted in zines like what was it, the Twisted Tongues, and also the Cut Up book that Joe Ambrose and
Mhm.
what's his name, uh, A.D. Hitchin did, which also A.D. Hitchin wrote the forward to my book, Akashic's Shotgun, right? And
Good
so
name.
thank you. Yeah, I was actually thinking of like Dorothy Parker, Sunset Gun, and then Charles, not Charles, but the guy who wrote Cosmic Trigger, Robert Anton
Yeah,
Wilson.
yeah, yeah.
I was thinking I did a mashup of Dorothy Parker and Robert Anton Wilson, Akashic Shotgun. Okay, so now our other guest today is none other than Are You Serious? Um, his real name is Ken Goffman. He's a cyberdelic trickster, a media hacker, and a futurist. He's co-founder and editor-in-chief of Mondo 2000, the legendary cyberpunk magazine that predated Wired. And my dad, Stephen M. Johnson, was also published alongside you, Ken, in a lot of magazines, including Whole Earth Review. So, and he's a huge fan of Wired and all that stuff. And we used to like eagerly await the latest issue of Whole Earth Review because our Crumb, right? Because he would feature and it was sort of like I would get so excited. I was a little kid, and I was like, "Oh my God, is it Crumb?" And he actually, you know what, he like in 1980, my dad took me to the Whole Earth Festival in Sausalito, right? And he said, "Okay, kid, like you need to experience this for yourself." And I was like, "What is it? What is it?" It's like 13 years old. He said, "You need to experience Allen Ginsberg." And that was sort of like losing my virginity or something. I was like, "Oh my fucking God." He read Plutonian Ode, right? For the first time, it was a debut of Plutonian Ode. And I was just like, you remember those ads for that like speaker system where the guy's sitting there and his hair is going like that? I was
Mhm.
just like, whatever that is, I want to do it. I want to, you know, so, I know that Ken, you know, was heavily influenced by Ginsey for sure. Um, Collaborated with Timothy Leary in Design for Dying, ran for U.S. president in 2000 under, I think was it the Freak Party or was it
The Revolution
the
Party.
Revolution Party? Yeah. So Hunter Thompson was the Freak Party guy, editor of let's see. Now, correct me if any of this information is incorrect. H Plus magazine, is that
But oh yeah, I did edit H Plus magazine for a while.
okay?
Yeah, but you can
Excel.
also say things that are wrong,
Okay,
and
that's
be
cool.
just as good.
I can hack myself, right?
Yeah,
Accelerate or 10
seller with an 8, and
right.
oh yes, yes, I did that
10
too.
monkeys
Like
and
a list of my crimes.
that would be a good story. I need to write that one. Musician frontman of Mondo Vanilli was signed to Trent Reznor's Nothing Records. The unreleased album I Owe You Babe, now on Bandcamp. Books include Mondo 2000, A User's Guide to the New Age, co-edited with Rudy Rucker and Queen Mew, Cyberpunk Handbook, Punk Handbook, Satirical Guide to Digital Rebellion, 1995-1997, How to Mutate and Take Over the World, a manifesto for media mutation. Designed for Dying, 1998, with Timothy Leary. Counterculture Through the Ages, a sweeping cultural history. True Mutations, essays and cultural commentary. Everybody must get stoned, rock stars and drug culture. And I admit that I reached out to you back in 1999 or so, with an incredibly like drug fueled piece that I sent to a like a I think it was a zine or something that you weren't even doing at the time. And
Hmm.
because because I
You
got
sent
your
it to me in my name, in other words, to this
yes,
zine?
because
Huh.
yeah, because I got
Well,
your
I wish I'd seen it.
yeah, I got your information from our mutual friend Thomas Roche.
Oh yeah.
And then
So
so
I
I
would have been getting it maybe. But I was there in 1999.
okay. Transcendence and Encyclopedia of Transhumanism 2015. And so let's see. So and um Ken is all about kind of hacking consciousness. And I think that's what you're mainly known for. And you've been a huge inspiration. I know, you know, you know, me, Billy Martin, so many people and have really been inspired by your work and kind of thought, hell, how far can we go with this, right? How deeply can we penetrate the neural pathways and kind of excite that kind of that liminal space between sort of like neurology and brain chemistry and cosmic consciousness, right? Psychedelia and Ken's work with people like William S. Burroughs, Timothy Leary, Trent Reznor, uh, you know I mean, we'll get into that. So, I guess the first thing I would like for you to discuss amongst yourselves is really we have this incredible tragedy that's befallen our republic and it's really affecting the entire world and demoralizing the entire world, which hitherto is kind of looked up to the United States as a beacon of, if not liberty, at least stability, financial stability, right? Our markets are crashing. Now we're in kind of free fall. And all these this all of the things that we rely upon, like, accurate information, up-to-date accurate information about the markets, for the stock markets, for example, um, you know, now because we have a narcissistic toddler, as a president who doesn't like who doesn't like facts. He doesn't like facts. He finds it hard. to process facts, and especially facts that disagree with him. And so for us as people who are trying to promote peace, and as Marc is a Buddhist practitioner and teacher, and like Ken was part of the anti-war movement. We're all peaceful people. So how do we fight back something that is so dark?
Please,
Anybody?
Ken. Yeah, Ken. I would be
Yeah,
both good
uh,
at.
right. I mean, I did a performance gathering uh, called Cyberpunks, Mutants and Mondoids Come to the Gulf of Deliria. So I was racking my brains about how to deal with facts and rationality and the absurdity of Trump's gonzo. His freaks haven't gone much further beyond the pale than our freaks did in a stupid and vulgar way. And I decided, for the moment anyway, just to give in to the delirium, to offer an alternative delirium,
Oh, interesting.
a delirium that's fun and brings the Dada back. So I mean that's kind of what I've been playing with, and we have an album, The Smarter Kings of Deliria, by Are You Serious and Friends. So then at the same time, uh, Mondo's slogan actually started with Reality Hackers magazine, was a beribboned letter bomb to the core address of consensus reality.
Mhm.
And, I confessed to Douglas Rushkoff that, yeah, we blew up consensus reality and this is all our fault. Uh, so, I mean, and it is, I mean, it is genuinely problematic. You need some kind of consensus. And, you were talking about this world that we all relied on in terms of, reason and monetary comfort and all those things. And of course, we were revolutionists. We were like, blow the fucking thing up. And then, the right wingers came along and they started blowing the fucking thing up,
Yeah,
but in a bad way, right? I
yeah.
mean, I mean, you have neoliberalism in one place, and then you have what you might have called left, and you might have counterculture over here, not being as potent and powerful as we might have liked to been. And then you have this other bizarro thing coming over from the right that included the alt-right, that included people who were hip in their way to pranks and punk and all that kind of stuff, coming at it, doing their twisted magic for Donald Trump back during the first Trump thing, when the alt-right was being really pranksterish and so forth. Um, and now we've landed where we are in this complicated situation where, on the one hand, you have to sort of support the mainstream, you have to support solid journalism. I mean, I started with the underground press in the early 1970s and the yippies. And the idea was you don't trust the mainstream press, and we're creating this alternative. And at the same time, we got our data from the mainstream press. And when My Lie happened, we looked to, I can't remember his name, Seymour
Mhm.
Hirsch. And,
Yeah.
we looked to Walter Cronkite, and we looked to some of the better people in the mainstream press. And there was a dynamic between us and them. Uh, and now you have this thing where people can call anything fake news and dismiss it. And there's a coterie of maybe a third of the country that will just say, yeah, it doesn't matter what legitimate journalists tell us it's all fake. You know, the fakes, the real stuff is fake, and the fake stuff is
Yeah.
real. It's all upside down and inside out now.
I've been trying to think of the name of the guy who did Paul Krasner. Did you know Paul at all?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I just remember like Susie Bright was reading did a thing for called Dan Quayle's Dick that she read with the Angry Women for the Angry Women book. I
Oh
think
yeah,
I still
we
have that.
covered that in Mondo actually. We
Yeah, that
had
was
a
really cool, and that was Vale and Andrea Juno is no
Andrea,
with
yeah.
them. And then yeah, so I'm a huge fan of Susie's stuff, and she did a she she I was in this book. Well, this is one of our connections. Thomas Roche, right? Did this series of erotic crime um, kind of erotic crime anthologies, and which had everybody from like John Shirley to you know to Poppy Bright, Caitlin R. Kiernan, Amelia G. Carol Queen, I think Lucy Taylor, and what's her name, Lydia Lunch. And then I got on board the third one, and praise for Noir Erotica 3. N3 is great, great, great. Susie Bright, SusieBright.com's favorite. So, I'm in something that was praised by Susie Bright. So, I can die happy. Um, but, I was just thinking like how, and we discussed earlier, Ken, about how the alt-right had pretty much um, sort of like I'm just thinking of like media theories like Jean Baudrillard or whatever, where you have the whole idea of the kind of the symbolic, and how the whole thing with like people like uh, the guy who wrote the Society of the Spectacle, Guy Debord, right? Talking about occupying the symbolic, and then you had like the whole situationist movement that was, covered by, people like Sadie Plant, who I'm a huge fan of Sadie's stuff, writing on drugs and whatever, and ones and zeros. And so anyway, it seemed for a while, particularly with things like the Occupy movement, that we could change the world if we just sort of fucked with the symbolism. But the alt-right did the same thing, as like they took things like Pepe the Frog, and then they kind of hacked hacked the hackers. They hacked back. And now we're in a kind of like this kind of free fall, um, viral war with no apparent solution because it turned out that just anarchy wasn't sufficient. Like blowing up the symbolic didn't do anything but make things confusing. And so it's kind of ironic, I think, that we're back to like looking for, you mentioned blowing up consensual reality. I wrote a story that's in my book, The Doom Hippies, called what was it? I forget it had to do with this kind of group that was it was inspired by the novels, The Savage Detectives, by that um South American author. He also wrote 1666, and it's about this group of kind of anarchists who decide that they're going to like drill down through consensual reality, And I was very proud of, I think, as an excerpt it was in Twisted Tongues
A
magazine.
great title.
Thank you.
I
And,
guess the title itself should be a movie for sure. Like
which one?
anybody, I don't know, anybody could come along and do it. Doom hippies.
The Doom Hippies. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, well, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Well, that's very kind of you. So yes. So, consensual reality, it turns out that it may be our best buddy after all, right? And I kind of wanted to turn this over to Mark because, to get your thoughts about how, for example, with the peace movement and with Buddhism and your work with Ginsburg and how that, Ginsburg famously tried to levitate the Pentagon by chanting Om at it. That I mean that seems
All right, the out demons out.
Yes.
right.
The Fugs led the chant and it was out demons out. Yeah.
Were you there or were you?
Ginsburg might have, no, I was too young. I was
Oh
only
wow.
15 or
Wow.
whatever.
That's so cool, man.
But I did join the Yippies as soon as I was old enough to decide to be a Yippie.
So Mark, what do you think of the? I know you and Richard Modiano are very serious Buddhists, but like, what do you think of the place of pranks?
Uh, well, I guess it has to do, you can only judge pranks by the result, really.
Okay.
So that's really, you can't just say pranks because some
That's a
pranks
good
are going to blow up in your own face.
good point.
Yeah.
That's a good
Uh,
point. Yeah.
but for instance,
Trolls.
one
Yeah.
of one of the most amusing things right now is watching South Park,
I
and
love
just
South Park,
and
right?
just I cannot believe what they're doing and how great it is that they just got this $1.5 billion
Mm,
contract. That's,
yeah.
makes it pretty untouchable. But oh man, it's like now there's a prank that it's had a tremendous number of views. The ratings are very, very high. So obviously a lot of people are seeing them. And just the humor and mockery of the emperor's new clothes, I can't help but think that's probably more powerful than any uh, demonstration. Maybe with the exception of, like I did some demonstration in front of, along with others, of course, in front of Elon Musk's Lexus dealership in Portland, Oregon. And that was really, it was obvious that all the people that were doing that across the nation had a tremendous effect, because the stock went down and Elon was basically kicked out of the White House. And although you never know, he could be back,
Right. Yeah.
but he'd have to be repackaged. You know, that sort of ketamine head roll.
The ketamine head roll.
Oh
That
yeah.
would make a great band name, right? Can you want to do ketamine head roll or a song, for that matter.
Oh, we lost him.
You know, or dance a song, a movement, dance floor revolution, ketamine head roll, whatever. You
I
know,
think
I
I I think
yeah,
we
go ahead.
lost him. I think he
Well,
crashed. Is he still there?
no, but having the godfather of cyber culture, you know, disappear like that in a digital context is wonderful. I mean, I hope he's
Yeah.
okay, but I think
Uh,
it's,
it's
you know what
probably
I
a
mean?
glitch. I bet he comes back. So
Yeah.
anyway, keep going. You're talking
Yeah.
about
Well, I like to,
cyberpunk element.
I like to kind of free range my head because spontaneous poetics, right? And as soon as I read um Kerouac's kind of manifesto, I was sort of like, yeah, man, because obviously obviously neurodivergent. And I think one of the great things about, Ginsburg, Burroughs, and all these people was that they kind of liberated language. They liberated language and they made it available so that you could kind of tweeze it and take it apart and kind of deconstruct reality and come up with these. My favorite example is is hydrogen jukebox,
Ah,
right?
see, he's back. He's back.
He's
Yeah.
bent his back. You know,
Yeah. You mean
hydrogen jukebox.
you mean the Phil Glass collaboration?
Well, that too, but I'm talking about the line in Howl where
Oh
it's
yeah. It's a great
listening to
line.
the crack of doom
Yeah.
and listening to the crack of doom on the hydrogen jukebox, right? So
Yeah.
you've got the Cold War, you've got thermonuclear, you know, proliferation, you've got the end of the world, and you have rock and roll. And I think you put those two things together, it's sort of like, you know how ayahuasca is composed of two vines, that they're chemically, that one is inert and the other, like if you put like Banasteri capi, I think. And have you ever tried ayahuasca?
It's after my time, shall
Oh,
we
it's
say.
after your time.
How
Okay.
about you, Ken? Have you tried it?
No, I've had more than my share of DMT, but
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never gone through the ayahuasca thing. But yeah, you combine Syrian rue
Yes.
with something that contains DMT, and you have ayahuasca basically.
Hmm.
And so like Ginsberg and Burroughs kind of started us down that road where with the
Yahe,
Yahe, what was it, the Yahe letters or the Yahe
Yahe
Right.
papers.
Yeah.
papers, yeah.
Well, it
And
I
is called
think
the
it might have been letters.
Yahe letters. Yeah,
yeah,
but
Letters,
Yahe
yeah.
letters, yeah. And
interestingly, I just want to say,
yeah, go
this
ahead.
um, Oliver Harris, who's one of the main scholars of Burroughs right now, came
Mhm.
out with Yahe letters Redux,
Oh, nice.
and he managed to find out that all of Burroughs' so-called letters were never sent to Ginsberg. They were written as a kind of novel,
Oh,
as
Hmm.
interesting.
in letter form. So I thought
Oh,
that was
oh yeah,
really interesting. This is what these guys, like Oliver Harris, do. They just go,
yeah.
"Oh no, wait a minute. There were
Oh,
really three Hassan Il-Sabahs, stuff
Uh,
like that. It's fascinating.
uh,
To me, it's sort of like what it's like the Comic-Con of Burroughs or something, when
I
these
love it.
whenever.
yeah, freak archaeology or something. Yeah.
That is badass. I've always been fascinated by I love Kathy Acker, and I know that you dated Kathy Acker.
No,
Well,
who's you saying dated Kathy Acker? Oh,
Ken,
No,
you
me.
did.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
okay.
And I was
All
just
right.
like, and I was telling my dad, and he said, "Oh yeah, I knew Kathy." And I was like, "You did? Why are you holding out on me, Dad?" So I I was like, and there was something about you and Kathy and Timothy Leary and Burroughs and an interview. Can you tell me about that? Was it and
Not Timothy Leary.
not Leary?
I was gonna go to William Burroughs' birthday party. I
Oh
think it
yeah,
was
that
his 70th in
yeah.
Lawrence, Kansas, and it got canceled. But I don't want to blame anybody, so I don't. Did I tell that story in public? I don't think I have.
I,
I cut it up,
I think you
and I
did.
gave it to you as a cut up, so it wouldn't be obvious.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm
But
using
I
that up.
wound up. I mean, not only does it involve Burroughs, it involves a shaman named Bill Lyon who used to work for Wallace Black Elk, might still, and it involves an incident with Earth First, and it's a great story that I'm not going to tell.
Right, because
I
you've
hope
already
everybody
told
can
it.
enjoy imagining it.
You've already told it though, and
No, I cut it up. I'm
no,
sure I
but
cut it
you
up.
I'm almost positive that you told it on my show though.
I might have. I
Okay.
don't know.
So anyway, there was a drug deal involved and whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
And
good
so
story.
yeah,
They got enough of it.
people
But I
can
never did
read.
get to go to the Burroughs birthday party
So it just like
in
I've always
Lawrence.
been fascinated by Kathy Acker because she would just wholesale like plagiarize entire novels, and she would like take things like Harold Robbins and just like basically change a few words or change the pronouns or
Not
something.
quite, but it was sort of pretty close.
Well, yeah.
She really was at that line between plagiarism and what's the word we like to use? I just wrote an entire chapter about appropriation. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came pretty close. We had a slogan at Mondo that was appropriation saves time, but we got it from some guy who called himself the Tape Beatles, and he originally called it plagiarism takes time, and we weren't quite that bold, but
Well, have you read any of Dodie Bellamy's cut-ups? She has
I've read
two.
a few things. Yeah.
There's two books out now. Uh, Cunt-ups is one of them,
Cool, excellent.
and
I
the
love
other
it.
one is Cunt Anthology.
Oh,
Oh
nice.
no,
Okay.
I think it's Cunt Norton for the
Hmm.
Norton Anthology.
Yeah.
I
They are really amazing, and they're very, very funny.
have to look
Because
them up.
yeah, you really should. They're both. I think they're both in print and easily obtained at City
Yeah.
Lights and
Oh,
probably
okay.
on their
You
website.
know, if we're gonna go down this road, I have a book that I just wrote and I just published. Ken, I want to send it to you. I want to send it to you, and I would love for you to read it. It's very flash fiction stories, um, and it's called The Candy Fontaine Chronicles, being the adventures of a slutty detective.
Sounds
And
fun.
it's extremely very, very much inspired by, Burroughs, Kathy Acker. It's a So what she is, she's a slutty detective. I mean, it's sort of
Mhm.
like a wet dream, like, Brundlefly between, Acker, Burroughs, Dennis Cooper, and and so she's kind of okay. So what she does is she doesn't like restrictions such as, gender, time, space, these things. She frequently is found to morph into like a slutty kaiju, monster, for example. Into In one of her adventures, she becomes a slutty kaiju, monster made of chocolate dab wax, or
Ah,
a Choco Dabadon. And then she hotboxes Tokyo and she gets reality high. And I think, you
I need this book, man.
okay, so
Send it
I would
along.
love to have a blurb. I know that, Ken, you already gave me one of my favorite blurbs, which was, what was it about? Something about I don't even like poetry. And then, Alexis Johnson's poetry. Um, what is it? Was it something straight to my neurons, or
I can't remember.
yeah, whatever. It's zips straight to my neurons. So it was like,
Zipped, zip,
hells yeah.
zipped itself.
So yeah, I need to send it to you. So when
Somebody was gonna, I can't remember her name. Uh, she made the film Conceiving Ada. Uh, I can't think of her name, but she actually talked about making a film about Kathy Acker that was called Slutty Detective or something
really,
almost exactly the same as that.
no fucking way.
Yeah, Conceiving Ada. Who made God? Why can't I think of her name? Anyway,
That is
look at
incredible.
look at your cell phone or something. Uh,
Maybe I kind of subliminally picked it up, and then I have a whole series of like I have a fake scholarly index, lecture on Candy Fontaine and student response. Slut Monster Sovereign, Candy Fontaine and the Ethics of Gender Fuck, delivered by Dr. Vesper Knoll, course Gender Fuck Grief and Monster Ethics, week 5 lecture, The Gender Fuck Citadel and Slutty Sovereignty. Um, and Let's begin with the term slut. In dominant discourse, it is a slur, a containment strategy, a disciplinary mechanism. It is used to shame, to archive, to silence. But in Fontaine's praxis, slut becomes a site of resistance. She does not apologize for her erotic excess, she weaponizes it. Fontaine's slutdom is not a performance, it is an ontology. She is slutty in the same way a black hole is gravitational,
Mm.
irresistibly, inescapably, and with consequences. Her body is not a site of containment, but of rupture. She does not perform gender, she detonates it.
Hmm.
And so I have like all these series of not only fake lectures, but fake. I even have this is an epilogue by Candy Fontaine. Epilogue to the Candy Fontaine Chronicles par Candy Fontaine, rédige à l'Hôtel de l'Oubli, chambre 1313, Paris. I never believed in ghosts until I read my own words in someone else's mouth. Alexander Johnson didn't write me, he summoned me. Il m'a appelé sans croix, sans Bible, sans honte. He cracked open the rib cage of language and let me crawl out, soaked in ink and indecency. I'm writing this epilogue in a Paris hotel where the wall people paper peels like old sins. Je porte seulement des récits et des lettres des suicides trempés dans l'héroïne, the kind of letters you write with trembling fingers and never send, except to lovers who never existed, or to God if he's still taking mail. So that is, in her own words. So I would just love to have a blurb from you, Ken.
Oh, do send that along, please. I
Um,
look forward to that.
so we talked about South Park, which is a vital site of resistance these days, and Ken has been doing like the Are You Serious and Friends stuff. So also you were and we talked about this before, and you've talked about it on other programs, but I love the fact that you were signed to Trent Reznor's label, and so
Nothing.
nothing, and
Yeah,
nothing ever came of that, but
nothing happened.
nothing happened.
Also, my book was going to be published by Zero Books, and that didn't get published either. So I
Yeah.
am not going to ever sign up with a company that, has a name like This Will Not Happen
This will not happen.
Television
Yeah,
Productions or whatever.
Did
yeah.
they
Complete,
did they run out did,
completely fucked films. Yeah.
yeah,
Huh.
right.
Hey,
Did they run out of money? What was the story? That must have been heartbreaking.
which one?
The nothing
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, they did, in a sense, run out of money. Reznor was permitted or encouraged to sign 6 bands. We were one of them, Mondo Vanilli. Um, and something happened. He was a subsidiary of Interscope,
Mhm.
which was a subsidiary of, I like to say Warner Brothers, but it was another of those big labels. And they kind of blew smoke up his ass that it was this great independent label that he could do anything he wanted with. And it turned out to be a boutique label that was under the control of the other companies until he cut back how much money he was spending, at which point, as Nine Inch Nails, he can do whatever he wants. And Marilyn Manson could do whatever he wants, but everybody else got let go of. And it was a money issue. It was a tightening of the belt under a number of different pressures. People were going, everybody he signed was going a little bit over budget. And somehow the accumulation of that caused Interscope to freak out. Plus,
Mhm.
they were being attacked. Nine Inch Nails specifically, but also Interscope. They were being attacked by the Tipper Gore thing that was going on
Mhm.
at the time.
Mhm.
And that might have entered into the politics of it, might have entered into some of their uh, uptightness or whatever it was. But yeah, so yeah, it never came out. Finally put it up on the internet in 2003. Enough time had passed. I mean, the biggest problem was that they gave us $90,000 to go into the studio and make the album, which to us was a lot of money. And then they wanted to recoup the money before we could use the album. And, we were, none of the bands other than Marilyn Manson were playing on a scale where we could run to another well-funded company and say, you need to pay $90,000 to nothing before you can release our album. All of us were in the area where somebody might give us five or $10,000,
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm.
So anyway, that's how it all ended.
So it's up on YouTube.
It's up on some of it, it might be somewhere on YouTube, but it's on my Bandcamp. Are you serious?
Oh,
Bandcamp.com.
okay.
Yeah.
I
I owe
definitely want to hear it. That's
I owe
for
you,
sure.
babe. Yeah, it's a great album. It's very good. And the other thing, Are You Serious and Friends, I should note, is PHRIENDZ. So is not to be confused with Phil Lesh and Friends or anything anything so user friendly as that.
I
Uh,
I was I
yeah.
was I was just thinking like in terms of transhumanism and I was do you know D. Snyder?
Yeah, I mean, I know who he is.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't know
because
him.
he did this film called Strangeland, D. Snyder's
Yeah, I
Strangeland.
saw
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
I don't think I saw it.
and it was I think it took a lot of ideas from you and people like, Shirley and Rudy Rucker and because it's all about transhumanism, right?
Oh, okay.
And his character is a kind of a transhumanist monster. And I interviewed him. There was some kind of like, you know, connection with Snyder beyond. Oh yeah. Well, Snyder was like, I mean, the PMRC hearings in Congress, which were headed up
Yeah.
by Al Gore and just coerced pretty much by, his former wife Tipper. And then they didn't expect that this long-haired, you know, heavy metal guy, who cross dresses and, and has this kind of fright wig, would be and like he's huge. I mean, D is like,
Yeah.
damn, he's huge, right? And he was
Eloquent.
incredibly, you know, persuasive, and he even like kind of like rooted out some of Tipper Gore's kind of psychosexual hangups. She's like, this this song is obviously about bondage. He's like, oh really? What gave you that idea? Well, it's about being strapped down and oh yeah, so that's how you are, right? And they thought, oh, John Denver, he's very clean cut, Rocky Mountain High. He was even more radically First Amendment than even like Frank Zappa and D. But I just remember this is self-indulgent kind of like self-congratulation. Oh, I knew famous people, right? But I remember I was at the I think it was the whiskey in Hollywood and with my former friend Tequila Mockingbird, the punk rock whatever person, and and we were just hanging out. I forget. I used to hang out with her a lot, and then places like the Rainbow. She introduced me to Lemmy, right, and then so I was wearing this T-shirt that was done by Ward Bull, the fetish photographer guy. And it was of Jen from the Jenna Torturers as the Ilsa, from the Ilsa films, right? And and it was actually signed by Ward. And I hear, "Hey Alex, great T-shirt." I turn around and it's fucking D. Snyder. And I felt like a god in that moment. I felt like, okay, so this is like, you know, cross contextually, I'm in the like this node of icons, right? I was with Tequila Mockingbird, um, and and then I looked over and there's Wes Craven. You know what I mean? I said, "Hey, Tequila, is that Wes Craven?" She's like, "Yeah, I just was working with him," and he was smiling at us. And then, it was a whole thing, but it was a sort of a magical era of my life, which is hard to properly credit as being real. For both of you, so that kind of
I
leads to
know the feeling. Yeah.
you, like, have there been any moments of your life, well, on and off, whatever psychotropic drugs, where you felt like this, when you think back, it's like you really wonder, did that happen?
Well, I'll just say
Mhm.
quickly, uh, not that did that happen other than waking up from a vivid dream, uh, but does it really exist is more a better
Oh, wow.
question.
Okay. Does it really exist, right? Especially if you're talking about things like DMT or, because and I every time I talk to somebody who's actually done DMT, I ask them about, have you seen the mechanical elves? Because in Morbid Curiosity magazine, there was a feature that was alongside one of my stories, that was all about the mechanical elves. And to this date, I'm like, I'll watch things on YouTube they talk about, and I was like, I never met those fuckers. What's
Yeah,
up with
me
that,
neither.
man?
Me neither. I mean, I've seen clowns aplenty. Clowns in cosmic, impossibly dimensional pinball machines, and to my knowledge, there haven't been any elves. I mean, you never know what you're going to see in the corner of your mind because
Yeah.
it's all around. I mean, it's impossible to describe really. So there might have been a few elves sneaking in there, but I guess one of the fellows doing legal experiments with DMT. Has a statistic. I think more than 50% of people register elves without having heard the elf myth yet. I mean, because part of that is programmed into what people are expecting. Terence McKenna was the guy with the elves, and
Oh yeah.
everything is followed from McKenna. So yeah,
No,
I used
yeah,
to
go ahead.
hear about I never did DMT, but I would hear about the insect people,
the
which
insectoids. Yeah,
yeah, I'd hear a lot about that, and that was quite
yeah.
fascinating. And there was a band called, I think it's Spoingle. Have you?
Spangle. Yeah,
Yeah, which was a
they're good.
DMT oriented band, and it
Yeah.
sounded like DMT.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, they're all right. Yeah.
Have either, for both of you, I mean, there's different, people will say, Hunter S. Thompson said they claim that he never, wrote anything on acid, but so, um, and I've only done it like once, that it was a kind of a designer, some designer stuff. Actually, I wrote about it. I think you would both find this interesting, because this was in sort of the liner notes to something called, this is Meteor City Records and Back to Earth Again. And it was a compilation of doom and stoner metal. And the first piece was written by, Scott Weinrich, aka Wino, from like St. Vitus, right? And so, and then they asked some of us. I was writing for Metal Maniacs, and this is just my thing, called Meteor City Wino and the Glowing Yellow Goop. Robert Christgau pegged it pretty well. This thing we rock writers do. We're the guys who review our mail. Like 99% of everything in life, the job is discouraging, unrewarding, and built on false premises. So when even a glimmer of honesty, sincerity, and real style shines through the usual corporate fog, it's something to celebrate. For me, Meteor City has been one of those rays. When Jad asked me to spin a few words together for And back to earth again, I immediately thought of a true story that involves wino, James Joyce, and a hallucinated drug. So obscure that to this day I haven't been able to identify its makeup and origin. Maybe today will be that day because we have Are You Serious in the house. A few years ago, during the early Jurassic, I was mixing some unstable ingredients in the hope of hot wiring my creativity. One of those ingredients came in a brown plastic bottle that looked like it might be hair conditioner. The substance inside was a gooey syrup the color of phosphorescent urine. Within 72 hours of following the simple,
Wasn't mine. No, no, no.
what?
I said it wasn't mine.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Following the simple instructions, drink me or something quite similar, I had, um, uh, let's see, passed through to the fifth dimension, experienced death in the form of molecular detachment, and watched disturbing new versions of my favorite videos. I also had a hardback copy of Joyce's Ulysses, which I decided to use for divining purposes, much as people read tarot cards or find patterns in espresso sledge. Flipping randomly through the novel, I was suddenly struck by a phrase, the hidden hand. Immediately after reading those words, an entire block of text began to morph into a list of names, which then scrolled before my eyes like the exposition at the beginning of Star Wars. Several years later, a series of coincidences led to my interviewing Wino for the Canadian metal magazine Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles. As we were talking, I asked him where he'd gotten the name for his new band, The Hidden Hand,
Ah.
right? And suddenly it occurred to me that I knew when Wino confirmed that the name came from James Joyce. I told him about my experiment. You read the Ulysses while you were tripping, he said. That's brave. Maybe. Also reckless, stupid, and incomprehensible to 99% of the population, nor do I claim any deep significance for the story, but it does illustrate something I've come to associate with the Meteor City roster and the values this label embodies. From Abdullah to the Atomic Bitchwax to Solace to Village of Dead Roads, which sounds a bit Verosian, right?
Yeah.
On down the
Place.
line. Meteor City bands seem to combine superior literacy, awesome musical talent, and an insight into the path of excess that William Blake celebrated and some of our parents warned us about. Anyway, so that's Alexis Johnson, contributing writer, Metal Maniacs, July 2007. So that's my glowing yellow goop story. And actually, I was actually trying to, I had a interview to be for a medical transcription job, and I was like, I gotta get a hold of some of this, whatever, cleanser or whatever you call detox, instant detox. Of course, it's bullshit, right? But I thought I need to go to a head shop and get some of this detox stuff, right, from weed. And so I was just like, my bloodstream was pretty much resin at that point. And so I go to this head shop in Pasadena, and it was weird because first the glass was kind of, smoky and and so I go inside, they meet me at the door, right? And I was like, this is interesting, right? And so I go up to the counter, and it was almost like we had this telepathic communication where I said, "Do you have anything for detox?" And so he points to this rack of bottles. He says, "This puts it in." And then he points to another one. He says, "That takes it out." And at that point, I was just so fucked up anyway. I said, "Well, it was only 15 bucks." And it looked like hair shampoo. It looked like shampoo, this brown bottle. And it was just a plain brown bottle. And it didn't list the ingredients. It just said instructions like drink me, almost literally, right? These looks like it's sort of like those urinal cakes or like a lava lamp. It was these bright, bright yellow urinal cake, colored globes that it was sort of like, and there was very thick kind of syrupy stuff, and you kind of had to separate mash up these whatever urinal cakes, right? And then stir it around and put it into a drink. I was fucked up for like 4 days.
Hmm.
Ah, is that did that trip you out or what kind of
I mean, I was seeing versions of movies that that were obviously that things that weren't in the movie. For example, I was watching one of my I should never have watched that Clockwork Orange on this shit, but I was watching it and there's a scene with a cat where the cat in my version it turns into Felix the cat.
huh,
And it was just did this whole, I mean, it like movies that were they're a finite runtime. Now they were infinite. Like scenes just
hmm,
expanded, and I watched the same scenes, and they were so interesting. And there was also like I saw kind of subliminal films within the films, almost like I became convinced that Stanley Kubrick had inserted like thousands of subliminal shots in A Clockwork Orange,
hmm.
you know, and I was thinking maybe this is some these this they were recently remastered like widescreen versions of
Is this the
Kubrick.
same? Is this the same trip that you were talking about before when you were
Yeah.
reading? Oh, okay.
A-
Yeah.
and I watched The Crow, which I'd seen many, many,
It
many times.
sounds vaguely could be dextromethorphan, which
Yeah.
is the stuff in Robo. Uh, if you take enough of it, that stuff within stuff within stuff within stuff, just way beyond the pale of any stuff within stuff within stuff you've had on any other hallucinogen. Uh, but there's no sense of gaining anything from it when it's over.
Yeah.
It's like you don't feel refreshed or reborn or enhanced creatively. It's just very wild trip.
The weird thing, and this is kind of like it goes beyond way, way beyond coincidence, is I became convinced that somehow I was going to be involved with something to do with the crow. Now, at
Yeah.
that point, I didn't know Shirley. And
Uh-huh.
in fact, I didn't come to know him until quite a few years later. But then we became friends first over the internet, over Facebook, and then he blurbed my first collection, 2012, The Death Jazz. And then and Ellen Mabey was and Thomas Roche and Dominic Lowell, gave me some of the other blurbs. But then last year, he reviewed my book, The Flowers of Doom, and he said, Alex S. Johnson is the Baudelaire of our time. And I was like, holy fucking shit, man. That's John Shirley, man.
Yeah.
I was just like blown away. And I was like, wow, the guy doesn't just, dole out, compliments like that. So
Yeah.
I'm amazed. And
Very cool.
you know John, right? Um, so I want to talk about a little bit about like that whole incredible nexus of talent, like you, Trent Reznor, you had Burroughs, you had Leary, you had Acker and Bruce Sterling. And what was that like? Was it just
Oh, it's
crazy or
like I mean, we were running a magazine and it was very busy. I
yeah.
mean, at the heart of what in the process of making a book, myself and my co-author are calling Mondo Prime. It was you didn't really have time. One of the lines I use in introducing the segment that we call Mondo Prime, when all that stuff happened, is like, what was it like? I don't know. I wasn't there because it was too much,
Mhm.
and you were um, you were dealing with the business of it for one
Yeah,
thing. I mean, it's you guys are familiar with this with publishing.
sure.
Uh, and there were constant parties, etc. But it was like such uh, a, I don't know, such a a rush of stuff happening so fast for a brief period, that it's hard to say what it was like. Plus, I had a verifiably insane girlfriend who, some people, she frightened the pants off a bunch of Crowleyites from Australia.
Oh,
Let
wow.
me let me put it that way. So, I got your Scarlet Woman right here,
Oh, damn.
Debbie. So I mean, that was taking up a lot of my mental space as well. I am forbidden from naming her now. But anyway, I mean, yeah, there were the women who were coming in at that time also were intense. So I mean, in some ways, they occupied more space in my psyche and in my eyes than any of the cyber celebrities we're talking about, except maybe Kathy Acker, who was,
Yeah.
definitely a force to be reckoned with amongst all that. But I mean, I feel like the intense period of Mondo is really from 1990 to 1992. And there's certainly relationships and friendships and communications that happened after that. But that was kind of the crux of it when it was all very intense and interesting. And that's a fond memory of like 7 people showing up to interview Marc Pauline from Survival Research Labs. It's what I call our gangbang interviews. And I mean, Andrea Juno was there, V. Vale was there, St. Jude was there, John Shirley was there. I can't even remember. So there were those kinds of things. Every interview turned into a party. Every arrival turned into a party. And I was just pretty overwhelmed by it all, actually. But it was great. And at the same time, I was getting my first rush of media coverage. So I was very focused on that. Between that and trying to have a business and trying to get a magazine done and dealing with a Scarlet Woman from infinite cyberspace as cyborg monster. All that was a lot. So and it was great, and I probably probably die a few years earlier than I should, but
Yeah.
well worth it.
Okay. That's awesome. Mark,
I have to head out in a few minutes.
okay, okay.
Uh,
So, give our 5 viewers like what are you working on now? How they can contact you, and just any plugs for your products.
yeah, hopefully this CD will become a real CD. I guess it looks upside down on the screen.
No,
Are you
no.
serious
Oh,
and
looks
friends?
right side up. Yeah,
The Smarter Kings of Deliria, sorry.
which is a real
So
banger. I've reviewed it.
yeah, yeah. So
Right.
that's kind of
Small berry.
still the thing I'm pushing on. There's the Freaks in the Machine Mondo 2000 and late 20th century tech culture by Sirius and Shira Chess, which is easily over a year from publication, but it's will be happening. It's going to be published by Strange Attractor Books. I'm still writing for Mindplex.ai. It's been a little while, but we got a piece coming up on the dickheads, the self-described dickheads who are the fans and progenitors and the people guarding the Philip K. Dick. Uh, not the people who own Philip K. Dick's family, who
Is it
are who are kind of really dickheads. But
is David Agronoff? Is he part of that at all? Or do
I
you
don't
know
know. We've been
David?
talking to David Gill.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, but anyway, so that should be coming out in a matter of days. And
Okay.
that should be pretty interesting. Dick is always uh, something to investigate, but that's all that comes to my mind right off the top.
Okay. And also, I'd love to have a piece from you and Mark on for a collective paw too.
Okay. All
Anything to
right.
do with animals.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Could
I
be a
know a few
song.
animals. I have an animal right over here.
Yeah.
You can't see her, but him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
All right.
So
Well, we had a band called Party Dogs, so maybe that can relate somehow.
yeah.
All right, man.
Squeeze. Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Take care.
Huggins. All right. Take
Again.
care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Okay, so Mark, I was really well. I'm a like Ginsberg is probably one of my biggest inspirations when I was very young. I was like 14, 15 years old, right? And I first read Howell, and then I read I always read who my favorite writers read, and so of course I got onto Blake, and I got onto later William Carlos Williams, but Rimbaud and Celine and then and uh, um, uh, um, Walt Whitman. And so you knew him really, really well. Like, what are some insights that you gained? First of all, it's like from personal insights, I guess, about like like what were some like lessons or instructions that he gave that you've incorporated into your life? And what do you think was his most significant contribution to poetics?
Well, that's an easy one.
Okay.
Gary Gotch, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Gach, put out something called What Book?
Hmm.
And that includes what Ginsberg called his mind writing slogans.
Hmm.
And those slogans are really great. And they're similar, very similar to the uh, spontaneous bop prosody list of Kerouac's. But
Hmm.
the most important thing in terms of spontaneous bop poetics is first thought, best thought,
Yeah.
which Ginsberg later glossed very close to the end of his life as first thought, no thought, then see what comes up,
Right.
which I think was an answer to people who were saying, "Is this the first thought? Is this the first
Right.
thought?"
Yeah.
So he's just saying, "Relax." So that is, I truly believe in that, in that sort of, whether you want to call it subconscious or even beneath that, intelligence that knows how to write or say what needs to be said without you rationally laboring over it.
Hmm.
And the one thing I think that is confused about that is that people think that you don't edit,
Right.
which is very, the process. Ginsberg would really emphasize doing a simple attention to the out breath meditation. And the way that kind of gets you aware of thought, no thought, even briefly, that the wagon wheel that seems solid begins to slow down. And you say, oh, there's spokes here. And then the whole thing, just seems a lot less solid. And meditation, when let's say, I hate to say this, but in the zone, when you're in the zone, uh, you're on, especially on the page.
Yeah.
And then when you get distracted, or just like in meditation, that's usually the stuff that needs to be cut.
Yeah.
So you go back and forth in your experience of writing, and that's okay. I mean, a lot of you can really you don't need to know what you're doing. That's, I think, the most important thing. Uh, and and the more honest that you are, especially with Ginsburg's own rule, nobody has to see it. So if you can write with that attitude, uh, it's pretty likely you're going to come up with some interesting stuff.
Right.
I teach, and a lot of students wind up getting published, which is quite interesting for me to see.
Yeah.
There are people who are total beginners, but there's a phrase, a particular famous Zen book by Suzuki Roshi called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is, the beginner's mind when it's really the intermediate mind. That's the problem,
Right.
the for any student, really. They think they know what's going on and then they fuck it up, you
Yeah.
know? So that's the most important stuff, I think.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And I wasn't aware that you and Richard had known each other since you were 13. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
how
he
did
was a
you meet?
couple of years older and terrified my parents because
Oh my God.
he had this 5 o'clock shadow that rivaled Nixon's, and he's a 15-year-old kid. He already, as I think my older sister said, Richard was already an old man,
Oh wow.
but he wasn't really an old man, but he's certainly an adult, and hanging around with this weird little kid, me. Made them think something very dicey was going on.
Oh
And
dear.
in fact, my mother's psychiatrist said, "Oh, definitely, this is an unwholesome
Oh
relationship."
no.
But
What?
it didn't, thankfully, they didn't do anything about it
Good,
because
good.
he was an incredible mentor. I mean, my father, pretty much up to that point, was really teaching me a lot about literature like Ray Bradbury and Edgar Allan Poe,
Yeah.
and about film. He took me to see Citizen Kane and
Right.
Bergman's Wild
Right.
Strawberries.
Right.
And that was incredibly influential. And then I met Richard, and Richard starts talking about Che Guevara and feminism.
Yeah.
He had an anthology of feminism that he loaned me that excited my mother and alarmed my father. He says, "Aren't they all lesbians?" You know,
That's
he usually
awesome.
wasn't that stupid, but at any rate, it's been a very rich relationship. Because he's clearly a genius. Anyone who
Yes.
speaks to him, I mean, he's probably one of the smartest people I ever met. I don't always agree with him.
Right. Yeah.
Politically, this is I think he honestly believes that a revolution is possible.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think survival may be possible, but not a revolution. Although we have talked a little bit about this, about how if things collapse, that maybe certain pockets of tribes could be constructed along what he would call an anarcho-syndicalist
Nice.
form.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't always know what he's up to. Like for instance, he posted something that Huey Newton had said on Facebook about dying. You had to be willing to die for the revolution.
Yeah.
And I said to Richard, I said, I'm not willing to die for America. I'll leave the country before I die for America. And he says, well, I'm not willing to die for America either. And I said, well, then why did you put this up? And he said, oh, it's just rhetoric. You have to understand it's just rhetoric. Do your homework, he said, which I'm not still not sure what he means by that. But I thought, a lot of people look to him, especially in this area, for some sort of political leadership.
Yeah.
And he seems to cultivate that too, with always now giving the fist
Right.
and having the black shades and some sort of I don't know who that would be. Che Guevara, I don't know. At
Yeah.
any rate, it's interesting to talk to him because as a Buddhist, his writing doesn't Buddhism does not show up very often in his writing,
Mhm.
and we talk a lot about that
Yeah.
because I don't think, I think he believes that we have to have a revolution first and then we can meditate. I'm not sure. I
Hmm.
really am not sure.
Okay.
But anyway, that's these are the thoughts that I've been having lately. So I
Okay.
wanted you to know that.
Yeah.
I listen to him. I always listen to him.
Yeah.
But we have our disputes. Not
Yeah.
in, I try not to argue with him. That doesn't go over so well. But I do know now how to step out of a debate with him. Because
Uh-huh.
basically, like here's something that he did, and then I should go really.
Sure. Yeah.
But here's something that he did with my father. He would tell me, here is early in our relationship. I'm 13, and I was coming home and talking about Che Guevara, and my father was flipped out. He says, "Who's talking to you about Che Guevara?" And I said, "Well, it's this guy Richard." And he says, "Well, I think he's a bum."
No.
And anything that he said to detract from Che Guevara, I would take back to Richard, and he would then go, "Well, and he would explain why that wasn't true." And so finally, my father was driving us to a movie, and I said, "Okay, you guys, talk about Che."
Right.
And so my father goes first, and he makes some statement about what he thinks Che stands for, and then Richard's diabolical debate tactic, which took me years to actually learn. You have to watch very closely when this happens,
Yeah.
is to say, "Well, in Che's diary," and basically that ended the debate because my father said, "Well, I haven't read Che's diary." Of course, he hasn't read Che's diary.
Yeah.
You know, so that's very tricky. Yeah,
It is.
when I would catch that, I said, "Oh, Richard, that's
Yeah.
you're pulling that one again." And
Uh-huh.
then he said, "Oh yeah, okay, you know."
That's awesome. So
Yeah,
I know you have to go, so I just want like maybe 5 minute takes on two people, Ellen Mabey and Iris Berry, because I mean they're very important to my whole kind of network, and just and with Richard and Emily, of course, and all the beyond Baroque family. But yeah, just so Ellen and Iris.
well, I didn't know Ellen that well, although we read together in, at the times when we were, uh, sort of part of that Beyond Baroque Los Angeles scene.
Yeah.
And then she put together her band, which was very interesting. And then, in my experience, she sort of just, that was only so far she could go with the band.
Hmm.
And after that, it, she sort of faded away for a while. I don't know what was happening. At least in my experience, I was not seeing her in the general scene. Of course, I like her writing.
Yeah.
Iris Berry, I think is really, really good. I've read, I think I've read everything that she's done in
Yeah.
print, and I have said to her, you really need to tell the secret stuff
Uh-huh.
because obviously, if you have long stories about being a junkie, there are some sleazy things that happened that I don't think she's reporting yet. And
I wasn't even aware. I've read her stuff. I read, I was a fan of hers before I met her, and then I read alongside her because Renee Diedrich did this thing called How Dirty Girls Get Clean.
right, yeah.
I was I was like a honorary dirty girl.
Uh-huh. Well,
So
that's quite a compliment.
thank you.
Anyway, I really like her work, but I would like to know something more genuinely confessionary. That's going to be hard because she is a glamour puss. You know
She
what I
is.
mean?
I have been trying to get her on board with my imprint with with no success whatsoever. But I know you have to go. So I just wanted to because you are in the third and final volume of the Junk
Mm,
Merchants.
right, right.
And I just want to show this off because this is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. And then
Hmm.
speaking of junkies, as we were, of course, it's called literally the Junk Merchants, right? And it's got so many incredible names, but including David J. Haskins, right, who wrote, Bela Lugosi's Dead.
Uh-huh.
But it also had, so this is really fascinating because for the last three and a half years, I've been friends with a woman named, her name is actually Carrie Lee Mitchell, but she goes by Carrie Lee Chrome or Carrie Chrome. And she founded a band called the Runaways,
Uh,
back in I think it was 1976 or 77, right?
not the Joan Jett
Oh
Runaways.
yeah, yeah, with
Really?
Joan Jett, yeah.
Wow, that's something.
And so I published her in the do you have a copy of the Bauhaus book? Did I neglect to send you
Yeah,
one?
yeah, you didn't send it to me.
Shit, man. Oh, so
I'll send you my address. Uh,
okay, you're so nice and patient. And so yeah, so I published her an original poem by her in that book. And then for the junk merchant, she sent me something called I need to send this to you as well. Well, you'll get the final version, volume two, which has everybody. But she wrote something called Mutsi Tutsi, which is about her. It's like the most searingly honest and painful and hilarious, you know, junky, junky like autofiction that I've ever read in my life. I mean, it rivals Burroughs. She is really an incredible prose stylist. No, I mean, people know her for like the songs, right? Secrets, Waiting for the Night, California Paradise, and I shouldn't say this, but Cherry Bomb. Okay, Cherry Bomb. But
oh, yeah, she wrote that?
well, it was directly inspired. See, what happened was that she, as a juvenile delinquent,
Uh-huh.
she was obsessed, and she is still obsessed with like cherry bombs.
Yeah.
And so she would have all of these journals, which she still keeps, and she would take the wrappers off a cherry bomb and then, glue it to her journal pages, right? Well, she was living with that awful, Kim Fowley at the time, right? And he would go into her room and rip pages out of her journal and then just like takes stuff that she wrote. She was only 14 years old.
Huh.
And he would give it to Joan Jett. And
Huh.
they would, so the whole story in the Runaways movie is total bullshit, man. I
Hmm.
mean, that never happened. It was really just, it was literal cherry bomb. And it
Hmm.
wasn't supposed to be like I'm a blonde bombshell or I'm, whatever, I'm 15 years old and I'm hot to trot, right? It was about the explosive device. So that's something that is a complete insider account that only I know, but
Hmm.
I'm sharing with everybody now, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, to be sure.
And she also, like, she had told me the story how she shot up with Nico and Danny Sugarman, right? And and
Oh.
they were speaking in French, and then afterwards, and they kept looking at her, and afterwards she asked Danny Sugarman, she's like, "What the fuck were you and Nico talking about?" And he said, "Well, Nico said in French, oh, she is like a young boy." That would be creepy, but also kind of like, you know, like iconic and surreal, to have Nico perving on you, right?
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of mind-blowing, yes.
It is mind-blowing. So, would you like a candy fontaine as well?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay.
I'll let me make sure you have my address. I'll email you.
Okay, cool.
And
And of course, a Collective Paul Volume 2. I need to get you some, I need to hook you up with the Bauhaus book also. And I guess the last thing is I'm going to ask how people can get a hold of you and what products you would like to talk about. We're putting out the Goddess book like next
Oh,
week.
yeah, yeah. Uh, well, I have a website, so it's myname.com.
Yeah.
So that should make it pretty easy. And then
Okay.
nobody has to listen to a long list of things. I think we'll leave it at that. I can't
That's
believe
so
anyone
Zen,
is,
man.
oh, well,
It's just my name, man. So that's cool.
well, you look it up there and it says what's in print, and
Yeah.
most everything is out of print. Uh, but I do have something new coming out on Beatum Press uh, that I signed a contract for, so it's actually going to happen apparently.
Nice.
Um, it's called Beat Dharma, and it basically sets out the truths and falsities about who was involved with Buddhism and when. It may be too eclectic, but there's a lot of or esoteric. But we'll see. I just wanted to set the record straight because there's so much bullshit out there. These people that are saying, stories about Alan being Buddhist when he wrote How, and this is all crap. There's very specific points where Kerouac was Buddhist, that Burroughs kind of phased with Buddhism and things like that, and Diane de Prima and Anne Waldman and Gary Snyder and a variety of the lesser players, and when and who they studied with. And I think it's readable. I don't. Well, remains to be seen. It's mainly to correct some of the errors, because what happens in some of these, which are academic textbooks, make these statements, is then other authors use them as footnotes,
Hmm.
and so this bullshit is just it upsets me. That's all.
Yeah, well, that's very useful. And I'm glad you do that because, knowing what went into, particularly like your whole description of that kind of the practice of mindfulness and how it relates to poetics, right?
Hmm.
Very
Hmm.
useful. And, whether or not I mean, it's very practical. And so, and the fact that that does come from, Buddhist meditation is interesting. But I think that's really useful and, kind of, you know, um, good for people to know. So good information. So if I were to gift you one of your books for you to sign
Yeah.
for me, what do you think would be like? I don't know. Maybe I should just ask you like maybe I'll send you the Ginsberg book for
Well,
to sign.
that's kind of a big book. Why don't we wait till we actually meet?
Oh,
You don't need to spend that money mailing that, and I don't need to
okay.
spend it mailing it back to
I
you.
know, right? Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, yeah, we'll meet and I'll sign whatever you got, baby.
That's so nice. Do you have a copy of the cut up book? Because
I
I
do, yeah.
never got one.
Well, they didn't
But
send them out. That's
oh,
why you never
okay.
got one.
Okay.
I tracked it down used.
Okay.
I didn't realize. I actually wrote them and I said, "Where's my copy?"
Right.
And they said, "Oh yeah, this here PDF. There's your copy." And I went, "No, this is fucked up."
That's
But
fucked up.
press was out of England anyway, so
Yeah. I
it's a
think
lot.
I don't know why they don't reprint it, but you know what? I mean, I'm kind of doing what they did. So I'm doing a much better job if I say so myself. I mean, nobody else has, David J. Haskins and Jarbo and you would carry the Chrome, right?
You have a tremendous collection of people, and
That's really awesome.
I've never really heard "Are You Serious?" and You know, wow, he was a pretty interesting guy, so
Right.
that was a nice experience.
I'm so glad that I got you two in conversation because that's what my favorite thing to do is just to put people together and say, hey, here's a forum, be whatever, be awesome.
Well, yeah, I certainly appreciate your what would you say? I appreciate your appreciation. I hardly feel of this, and I'm not saying this out of false humility. This is out of genuine humility.
Yeah.
I hardly feel on the same level as Are You Serious? You know,
Well, nobody does. I mean, kind of, he is the man, right?
well, he's done very well,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is that he has had a great name and people remembered it.
Yeah.
And so, and that's how it is with me. I say, "Oh, are you serious?" And then you see it again and again and again. If it was Ken, I wouldn't remember it. And
That,
so that was very clever, I have to
that was,
say.
there's
Good
one
branding, good branding.
good branding. There's one other thing. You had a band called The Job after the
Right.
Burroughs book
Yeah.
that was you opened up for Ginsberg or you did something. What was that all about?
We actually backed him up
Oh, you
on
backed him. That's so fucking cool.
with
Yeah.
Bird Brain and Capital Air. And then yeah, that was pretty much it. So we played that a number of times. It's funny, he really wanted more of a pop sound.
Yeah.
As much as he liked punk rock, he wanted to be recognizably pop.
Yeah.
And we were much more into deconstruction.
Nice.
So we did a deconstruction. It's online. There's a song, the Gluons put it out, and it is like a pop song. It's almost like the Batman theme, you know. But we totally deconstructed that, and
Wow, nice.
Ginsberg said afterwards, even though he allowed us to do it, he said, "I don't understand your aesthetic."
What a great quote.
Yeah. So as much as, and then we did Capital Air the way he wanted it. And boy, that song went on and on and on. That's like a 7-minute song, and it doesn't even have any chorus. And I don't think that's particularly successful. I never play my own version, and I really don't like hearing it at all, to tell you the truth. I like the lyrics, but not, I think the song was very self-indulgent.
I just think that, conceptually, the fact that you had a band that was named after the job by the guy that Daniel Odier, right, the French novelist, um, and who was what was his pen name? I forget.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just the job was a collection of Burroughs interviews.
right. But it was actually I think it was Daniel Odier. It was one guy, and that was where he talked about like black magic and how you can manipulate events and stuff. And
Hmm.
so that's an incredible book. It's one of those books where I used to buy it and then lose it and then buy it again and
Hmm.
wind up with like 5 copies. And I just think it's badass that you had a band called The Job. I don't know, anyway. So
Well, I just have to say,
yeah,
apparently there no big surprise, but there's more than one job out there internationally.
okay.
So we've yet to run into confusion about that. Because don't think that anybody listens to either one of the bands or any of them
Yeah.
anymore. But it is funny every once in a while I hear, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah."
You gotta have
And
like a festival of like, all bands with the same name,
yeah, I
you
think
know.
that would probably not work out so well.
Okay. I like that. toy around with like I'm a kind of a completist, so I think of things that maybe are useless or pointless, and I think, well, but they don't exist yet, and technically
Yeah.
it could be done. So
Uh-huh.
I will let you go, but I've had a really good time and
I've
yeah,
enjoyed talking to you and the whole trip. So
right.
thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
And I'll see you when I see you. And I'll
Okay.
send you my address.
Okay, cool. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.